has made it very clear that he wants Harry back. You know, we saw it in Harry's book. Don't make my life a misery, but don't make my final years a misery, boys.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle from the British royal family are being erased. And this is far more significant than just the destruction of their former home.
No matter how much they try to portray themselves as pseudo-royals. And I think you can see quite clearly on the part of the Duke of Sussex an attempt to try to open up an avenue to return to the fold.
There is a property on the Windsor estate that every single member of the royal family is treating like it is cursed. And the lengths being taken to avoid it tell you everything you need to know about where Harry and Meghan actually stand with the institution they walked away from. Nobody will go near Frogmore Cottage, not one person. And the detail that makes that fact truly extraordinary is this: when Prince Andrew, a man whose reputation has been so comprehensively destroyed that he has run out of places to retreat to, was reportedly presented with Frogmore as a potential solution to his housing situation, he looked at it and said, no, not suitable. Beneath his current standards, a man with almost no remaining options and almost no remaining dignity turned the cottage down flat.
A huge blow up, a big fight around Harry's plans for summer return to the UK, including spending time at Balmoral, potentially, and reconnecting with the king.
Sit with that specific detail and let it land fully, because what it communicates about the radioactive status of that building is almost beyond comprehension. Andrew is not in a position to be choosy. Andrew is a man whose social and institutional standing has been reduced to almost nothing, following years of scandal, legal proceedings, and public disgrace. And yet the property associated with Harry and Meghan was still somehow worse in his estimation than his alternatives. That is the level of contamination attached to the Sussex name within the walls of the institution they once called home. And inside Frogmore Cottage right now, work crews are doing something that goes well beyond renovation. They are conducting what can only be described as a systematic institutional erasure.
Seems as it's been revealed through The Sun that assessments are being made of the property to see if it can be split yet again into either multiple residences, and basically to erase every single trace of Harry and Meghan on the property. And that is a really fascinating revelation.
Every trace of Harry and Meghan's occupancy is being removed with deliberate and methodical precision. The £2.4 million transformation the couple poured into that building, the yoga studio, the completely rewired electrical system, the new gas mains, the new water infrastructure, every personal and expensive choice they made to turn a cluster of staff accommodation into their...
Initially, the house was actually subdivided into multiple sections because it was actually a residence for multiple staff members. So there was a process undertaken to redo the property, make it go from a multiple family residence to a single family residence. And of course, this was to the tune of millions of pounds. Some of those structural changes, these sorts of things, I'm sure were needed to upkeep a property.
Private royal residence, all of it being ripped out and reversed. The cottage is being carved back into the separate smaller staff units it was, before the Sussexes swept in and claimed it for themselves. Nobody leaves a multi-million-pound property sitting empty for years and then spends additional fresh money specifically tearing out a previous renovation by accident. That is a deliberate decision made by deliberate people with a deliberate purpose. Somebody inside that institution reviewed the budget, considered the optics, and signed off on spending money not to improve the property but to obliterate every choice the Sussexes made within it.
And of course, there was a lot of criticism about what Harry and Meghan, let's say, did. You know, they had to add a yoga room, a 5,000-pound copper tub, and all these sorts of things because Soho House, of course, was involved. I still am absolutely flummoxed by Meghan Markle's obsession with Soho House. I feel like I need to stay there one time and maybe, just maybe, I will understand, but I doubt it. It's just a place to lay your head, I guess, and hang out. And then obviously Harry and Meghan left the room. Harry and Meghan Markle are being erased from the history of Frogmore Cottage.
That is not property management. That is a statement. You do not gut a building you simply have no use for. You gut a building you need cleansed. You strip it the way you would a space where something unwelcome had been living and that you need to feel genuinely rid of before you can breathe. Normally inside it again, and the Andrew detail keeps echoing because, as one source apparently put it, the property sat empty for years and even Andrew in his current desperate circumstances did not consider it livable. So let that question sit suspended in the air for a moment.
No more. The Sun does a really great job of their headlines. It's masterclass. The Brits do just a fantastic job. Page 6 in the United States does fairly well. It says final traces of Harry and Meghan to be wiped from Frogmore Cottage as £2.4 million revamp is reversed 3 years after eviction. So I honestly will say as well, it doesn't look all that great for the royal.
What exactly is wrong with one building that not a single person in an entire royal family, not even the member with the fewest remaining choices, will accept as adequate accommodation? The answer is not structural. The answer is not about damp walls or outdated plumbing. The answer is about what that building represents and who it is associated with and how the institution feels about those people. And those feelings are not warm. Now strip away the sympathetic framing that certain media outlets have attached to this situation. The misty, nostalgic narrative about Harry longing for Windsor lawns and the comfort of family closeness. And what actually comes into focus is a picture considerably less romantic and considerably more financially driven. Harry needs money.
There's so much you could talk about with Frogmore. Obviously, it was the home that Queen Elizabeth II gave to Harry and Meghan for their wedding. Now, gave is a very, let's say, in some ways misleading. It was sort of lent to them officially, unofficially. So how it works in the British monarchy is that there's a series of properties that belong to what is known as the Crown Estate. And the monarch, whoever that happens to be, can give some of those residences to members of the royal family, royal staffers, as a, let's say, a thank you for their long period of service and these sorts of things. And of course, Frogmore Cottage fell under that umbrella.
Not in the casual sense of needing more of it than he already has, but in the urgent and increasingly visible sense of a man watching the revenue streams he built to replace royal income shrink and dry up while his expenses remain enormous and his options narrow. The as-ever brand, Meghan's grand declaration of independence from the royal identity, the commercial project that was supposed to demonstrate she never needed the crown to generate cultural relevance and commercial appeal, is reportedly in serious difficulty by every available indicator.
Meghan Markle thinks that signature candles based on herself, her marriage, and her children are going to sell to the broader public. And she thinks now, if the matches are offered individually, she thinks, let's say, offering those matches individually is going to get people to buy some as well, though I'm sure she's going to stock much fewer of those and much, much more in this signature scent collection to get this collection to move. And this is just such a bare bones basic idea. She is treating this matches, something you can get for cents, like 50 cents, 25 cents. She's offering matches as like sort of a huge look at me style item. Now, if I refresh this page, is this?
And the flagship product launch that was supposed to arrest the brand's struggling momentum and signal a new chapter of consumer enthusiasm? Matches, boxes of matches. Read that sentence again with full attention to its absurdity. A woman whose wedding was watched by billions of people around the planet is now attempting to shift boxes of matches from warehouse shelves and reportedly struggling even to do that without resorting to bundling strategies designed to make products move when they will not sell independently. Because that is the detail that had people across the internet genuinely howling. The matches apparently had to be packaged together with additional items, bundled and sweetened with extras, because the product would not generate sufficient demand on its own standalone merits.
Yes, oh yes. Guys, believe it or not, it took me forever to like click this thing and get this to work earlier. But we have matches. And to be fair, Meghan Markle is following something I had previously suggested, which is that, in order to sell stubborn inventory that's not selling, sometimes it's a fairly good idea to offer something free with it. And I believe that's what's happening here. I'm pretty sure the matches are free with the candles. And that's not a bad idea. I'm not criticizing it. But what's interesting to consider as well is I think this reflects how poorly the brand
and anyone with basic retail literacy understands precisely what that signal means. Brands with genuine consumer enthusiasm and authentic demand do not need to staple freebies onto their products to move inventory. That specific commercial maneuver is the visible signature of a brand that has overestimated its own appeal and is now managing the uncomfortable gap between the image it projects and the purchasing behavior its audience is actually demonstrating. The theory circulating that illuminates much of the desperate energy surrounding as ever's commercial activity is one that observers keep returning.
King Charles has been facing a lot of accusations lately that he is behind some type of attempt to secretly return Harry and Meghan to the UK. It's been discussed as something called Operation Thaw, which has seen a whole load of political figures from Yvette Cooper to Boris Johnson sort of be sent out to try and make the British public believe that we in some way should give Harry another chance. But I think this is some real pushback, and it's making it clear, is it not, Ray?
Two, because it would explain so much. If a significant portion of the Netflix money, the deal that many people assumed had placed Harry and Meghan in a position of comfortable and durable financial security, was quietly invested back in as-ever inventory, then Meghan only recovers that capital when and if the products actually sell. The money is not sitting in an account generating returns.
Sort of view on why people are so fascinated in the sort of fall of the House of Sussex is it doesn't reflect particularly well on the human heart, but there's a great concept in Greek tragedy and Greek drama called the chastisement of hubris, the chastisement of arrogance, the chastisement of and I think that's why people remain fascinated by this story. Why on one hand they're like, oh, I hate her, I never want to see the sight of her again, I can't bear it. But the other side, we can't help reading about the latest disaster to befall them with the site, and it's because of what they did to the royal family. Is because of the way they left, saying that they were going to redefine service, that this was going to be a whole new world. And
it is sitting in a warehouse in the form of artisan jam and candles and matches and lifestyle products that are not moving at the pace the business model requires. And every month that inventory sits unsold is another month the financial pressure inside that Montecito mansion builds toward reckoning. Now build the full picture of what is operating financially behind the carefully maintained public facade. A mortgage on an enormous and expensive property in one of the most costly real estate markets on the planet.
Thaw may be coming from Buckingham Palace, certainly from the part of the office of the Prince and Princess of Wales. Things are as frosty, if not frostbitten, as ever.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Rafe. Does this not show that actually it's Kensington Palace now that calls the shots on a lot of these big concerns of the future rather than Buckingham Palace? And part of that is because of the King's health battle and the fact that a lot of people feel that the, I guess, gravitational sort of direction of the monarchy is now being led by Prince William. And William is absolutely categorical.
A private security operation whose annual cost is eye-watering even by wealthy California standards, and which is now funded entirely from personal income with no institutional subsidy. A consumer brand visibly running out of commercial momentum. Inheritances, money from Diana, from the Queen Mother, quietly being drawn down to keep the performance operational while the earned income fails to reach the level necessary to sustain the lifestyle, the children's school fees and the household staff and the travel and the wardrobe costs and every other expense of maintaining the image of two globally significant figures continuing their important and relevant work.
Here they spent £2.4 million, originally of taxpayer money, which they later then paid for themselves, in order to put in these yoga studios, to put in all these copper baths and so forth. So much for living within your means. And now, of course, all comes to naught. It's quite a nice luxury to be able to spend 2.4 million without even thinking about it. But yes, I think the messaging here is quite clear. There is no place for them within the royal household, within the royal entourage, no matter how much they try to portray them.
And viewed through that specific and unromantic financial lens, Harry's suddenly urgent and deeply emotional need to reconnect with the family he spent years loudly and publicly dismantling starts to look considerably less like spiritual growth and considerably more like a man who has discovered what his market value actually is in the absence of royal association and found the discovery devastating. Because the one thing that proximity to the crown delivered for free was a credibility and a celebrity premium that inflated the commercial value of everything they did. The moment that premium evaporated, the entire valuation of the Sussex brand had to adjust to what they were actually worth. Without it, remember those two words, the freedom flight. Harry announced his departure from royal life with an energy that communicated unmistakably that he considered Britain and its monarchy something beneath his aspirations.
Years, Prince Harry insisted he wanted one thing above all else: family. Okay? Not the institution, not the titles, not the palace. Family is what he wanted. And according to a new bombshell report, that desire may have triggered one of the biggest fights yet between Harry and Meghan. And behind the carefully curated anniversary photos, don't we look nice? Because I'm painting the pictures.
something he was escaping toward a better and more authentic life. He wanted the world to know he was free. Well, freedom has a specific and uncomfortable texture once the money starts thinning and the doors start closing and the once enthusiastic partners begin quietly reassessing whether the Sussex name still delivers the returns it once promised. That triumphant declaration of liberation has an entirely different resonance now.
Okay, according to reports, Meghan was furious after hearing claims that she and the children would not be welcomed by William and Catherine, leading to what began as a disagreement into what insiders describe as a showdown. Okay. Now, these claims come from an unnamed source and have not been independently verified. But let me just say something. It makes sense. It makes sense. And also, the story that I did around Meghan and trying to connect with her arch nemesis to find favor with Queen Camilla makes a lot of sense, because she's not going to want to go if she can't have an ally, if she can't build some kind of connection to someone.
And the British public has been watching its recontextualization with an attention that is not remotely sympathetic. And now Harry is sitting on a Home Office security review, hoping to get taxpayer-funded protection reinstated so he can move in and out of the United Kingdom whenever the commercial or emotional calculus requires it. The public response to that request has been pointed and consistent. You do not publicly humiliate an institution, voluntarily relinquish your duties within it, declare your freedom from it on an international stage, and then turn around and ask the ordinary British taxpayers whose taxes fund that institution to pay for your personal security. He chose his freedom. He can fund its operational costs from his own resources. That argument has a clarity and a moral logic that resonates with a public that is not feeling particularly generous towards someone who seemed so eager to be rid of them.
Meghan Markle is trying to ignite her failing brand as ever, and she has come across what I'm sure she feels like is a gangbuster idea, which is matches. Yes, oh yes, Meghan Markle is hoping literal fire helps her sell her failing brand as ever. However, I don't think this is going to work, just like everything else.
The security question matters beyond its immediate financial dimensions because it is the strategic key to the larger ambition. State security protection is what makes regular and comfortable UK travel practically viable. Regular, comfortable UK travel is what creates the proximity to the royal family that genuine reconciliation would require. And genuine reconciliation with the royal family is what would regenerate the institutional credibility that the Sussex brand has been losing since they walked away from it. Deny the security and you block the entire chain of desired outcomes in one efficient move, which is precisely why so many people are determined to do exactly that. But while Harry was navigating the external battle for a route back into Britain,
now, the trouble reportedly started when Harry began planning what he had hoped would be a meaningful summer in Europe. And does it not make sense? He wants not a vacation. He wants a reunion, a chance for Archie and Lily to spend time with their grandfather, King Charles, a chance to reconnect with his roots, a chance to remind his children where they come from. But then came the information that allegedly changed everything. According to a report, Meghan learned that William and Catherine supposedly wanted nothing to do with the Sussexes and did not want family tensions disrupting their time in Britain.
Something reportedly far more damaging was unfolding inside the Montecito mansion itself. The account that has been circulating describes Harry sitting at the kitchen table with maps spread around him, planning what he hoped would be a meaningful summer, travel across Europe, time at Balmoral, an opportunity for his children to spend real time with their grandfather while the king's health remains uncertain and his treatment continues. A plan built around hope and family and the possibility that things could be different. And then the news arrived that reportedly destroyed the entire blueprint. Word reached Meghan that William and Catherine had made their position clear. They wanted no part of any Sussex drama hijacking their family's summer and had communicated this with the kind of directness that left no room for reinterpretation.
Well, I think that, look, it's a pretty dry and dusty town, Geneva. Do you know what I mean? There's not a lot of stardust and there's not a lot of glamour. So I think in one sense, they'll take what they can get. And this is what they could get to sort of, and what's quite interesting about it is that they're trying to also, it was the beginning of a thing called World Health Awareness Week or something, where all the health ministers fly into Geneva basically from massive freebie, as far as I could tell, to talk about stuff.
And Meghan, by multiple accounts, did not receive that information quietly. What started as a disagreement between Harry and Meghan about how to respond reportedly escalated into something significantly more heated, and the specific line being repeated in the accounts of that confrontation is the one with the most devastating strategic implications. She reportedly told Harry that if he wanted to go to Britain, he was welcome to do so, but that she and the children would staying in California. Consider the impossible architecture of that ultimatum for a moment. It places Harry in a trap with no clean exit. Choosing his desire to reconnect with his family of origin means going without his wife and children.
Heck is the World Health Organization doing, fixating with Meghan Markle on social media and children, this project she had in Geneva, when the reality is we've got a new Ebola outbreak that's actually quite frightening. It's one of those common sense headlines that when I read it, I thought, how did we not talk about this a week ago?
Choosing his wife and children means abandoning the reconciliation he has been building toward. Neither option is livable. Both options reveal the fundamental incompatibility at the center of a marriage between two people who have entirely opposing relationships with the same institution and the same country. Shortly after that reported confrontation, Meghan reportedly packed for Switzerland and departed, leaving Harry in California behind her, the two of them operating in a space that sources describes as barely functional in conversational terms. You could generously frame this as a normal marital disagreement of the kind that every couple experiences, as in Weathers, but the fault line running underneath this specific argument is not about everyday friction.
And so I think the whole problem with the whole Geneva chip is like a microcosm of like everything that's gone wrong with like the whole operation, isn't it? Because it's like real confusion about what you are. Are you like a crowd pleaser? Are you like a deep thinker? Are you like a political this? Who are you? What is your brand? What are you trying to structure yourself as? But most importantly, there's no sort of heft to back it up. There's no infrastructure to back it up anymore. We know the whole thing's collapsed. We know they've got no staff left. We know the charities have been shut down. We know that the production company is basically just what I believe in your town they call a label, which just kind of slaps their label onto other.
Harry is being pulled toward Britain with a force that appears to be strengthening rather than weakening as the financial and commercial picture grows more pressured. Meghan is oriented in the opposite direction with equal force. California, distance, never looking backward. Two people who no longer share the same vision of what their future looks like are discovering that divergence out loud and in conditions of significant stress. And what Meghan walked into at her Geneva destination is one of the more mercilessly documented public embarrassments connected to either of them in recent memory. The World Health Organization event was presented in advance as a meaningful diplomatic appearance, a serious and weighty platform that would demonstrate Meghan's credibility as a global humanitarian figure beyond the celebrity apparatus she left behind. What she actually encountered was a room that a journalist genuinely present at the event described without any diplomatic softening whatsoever. The attendance was so thin, reportedly around 10 people in total, that the same reporter used the image of a British phone box to describe the
Finnish health minister. I mean, this shows you the kind of Z-listness of the whole thing, that we had this kind of Finnish health minister who turned out to be a sort of vile misogynist and literally accused of sex crimes
and racism
posing for a selfie. Meghan allowing him to take a selfie with her. But the whole thing is, Kinsey, right? It's like organizing a foreign tour for a member of the royal family is really, really difficult. It needs absolutely massive organization. You need massive levels of vetting, and you need like real local power, because you need to be able to say, well, who is coming to this?
Scale of the gathering. After all the advanced coverage and the earnest promotional framing, the statesman moment that was supposed to restore global credibility played to a room that could not fill a modest public space. And then the photograph. Meghan was photographed smiling warmly beside a foreign health official who that same reporter described as a genuinely problematic figure, someone accused of making remarks about women and about Muslims that were so offensive the journalist declined to reproduce them. in their coverage. There was Meghan grinning beside him for the camera, representing nothing in particular to nobody in particular in a room that barely existed. The explanation for why this keeps happening, the empty rooms, the unsuitable photographs, the products that will not shift, the events that generate manufactured headlines that bear no relationship to the actual scene is not mysterious when you understand what Harry and Meghan are now operating without. The institutional machinery is gone. The professional staff, whose entire function was to evaluate every room, vet every name, scrutinize every association, and quietly redirect their principles away from anything that could embarrass or complicate, all that is gone. Royal engagements require a year of preparation and a substantial professional operation, checking every detail against a comprehensive risk framework. Harry and Meghan are now running their entire public operation on the functional equivalent of text messages from personal contacts. And the gap between that and what they used to have is visible in every empty room and every regrettable photograph.
Well, Prince Harry doesn't speak for the United Kingdom. I think I speak for him on that. I think that's what Donald Trump was told by his staff when his staff rang up and said, hey, what's going on here? Why is Prince Harry doing this? I think they said, don't worry, Prince Harry doesn't speak for the United Kingdom. And they told him, don't worry, Prince Harry. But it was interesting, wasn't it, that Donald Trump didn't kind of explode. Like, they didn't kind of remonstrate and say, this is outrageous. And so I think in a sense, it was a way to run these ideas up the flagpole 5 days before and just check that Donald Trump wasn't going to have a massive nuclear meltdown and write 15 posts on Truth Social about what an idiot Prince.
The 5 separate outlets that ran the identical headline about a powerful speech, word for word the exact same promotional language, clearly sourced from the same press material, represent the manufactured version of the event that exists in the media record versus the actual version that existed in that Geneva room. Powerfuls was the word chosen, and powerful was the word repeated by journalists who never traveled to Switzerland and never saw those empty chairs. The image was constructed from a desk and distributed to publications whose appetite for copy exceeded their commitment to verification. That is the information environment Harry and Meghan are trying to navigate, where the manufactured headline and the documented reality have stopped having any meaningful relationship to each other. And while that reality accumulates its weight, certain commentators and certain journalists are working with considerable energy to sell a different narrative entirely. The quiet reconciliation story, the thaw that is supposedly already underway. The father and son who are allegedly mending the relationship through careful private communication. They point to apparent alignments between Harry's public statements and the king's public positions on specific topics. Anti-Semitism, Ukraine as evidence of coordination, the same themes appearing in both men's communications around the same timeframes. Coincidence? The official answer is always yes. Every time pure coincidence. But coincidences of this specific and repeated character are doing significant work. In the thaw narrative and the theory that Charles and Harry are quietly coordinating their public messaging as a form of cautious reconnection has enough circumstantial support to keep it circulating through communities that want very much to believe in the romantic version of this story. Charles would welcome it. Everything documented about the king's feelings toward his estranged son suggests that reconciliation would represent something genuinely important to him at a personally difficult stage of his life. Harry's memoir recorded what read as a genuine and wounded plea from his father about not being made to suffer through his final years in conflict with his son. Charles wants his family back, but Charles is no longer the person whose desires determine the shape of the monarchy's future. That reality is where the thaw narrative collides with the wall that stops it entirely. Prince William, not William as a sentimental figure who might eventually soften under sufficient emotional pressure. William as a man who by every credible account holds his brother directly and personally responsible for adding weight and pain to his family's life during the most privately difficult period they have been through. William, who is now widely understood to be the person whose judgments and preferences are quietly but decisively steering the direction of the institution. Charles can dream of reconciliation with whatever warmth and sincerity his nature provides. William's position is reported to be categorical, direct, and not subject to revision. Harry remains in exiles, and that is the conclusion of the matter. The future king has given his answer. The comeback narrative has nowhere to go. And even if Charles wanted to force the reconciliation through against William's categorical opposition, the British public has been signaling its own position with a clarity that nobody inside the institution can afford to ignore indefinitely. The public mood around Harry is not evolving towards sympathy, it is hardening in the opposite direction. Every time his image is pushed back into the conversation, the pushback from people who were previously neutral becomes more pointed. Lifelong monarchists, people who have supported the crown through controversies that would have broken lesser institutions, are saying with increasing directness that a Harry rehabilitation would represent a breaking point. that the day he is handed any formal role is the day they reconsider their relationship with the monarchy entirely. That is not fringe sentiment. That is a documented current in public opinion that represents real institutional risk. And the demands that surface repeatedly in those public conversations go considerably further than keeping Harry out of official events. The complete removal of the Sussex names from the official royal website, the formal stripping of titles, the removal of Harry's Counselor of State designation, the removal of his children from the line of succession entirely, the erasure that began with Frogmore Cottage, finish it, complete it, make it total and final and unambiguous. That is the specific demand being articulated by people who have decided that half measures and managed distance are insufficient given everything. That has unfolded, so let Harry spread his maps across the kitchen table and plan his summer. Let him dream about Balmoral mornings and grandfather-grandchildren time and the possibility that the family that closed its doors can be persuaded to open them again. The cottage has been gutted. The marriage is visibly fracturing under the pressure of irreconcilable desires. The brand is struggling against the evidence of its own commercial performance. The institution has made its position legible through absence and demolition crews and a prince who would not accept a free house. And the British public has communicated its feelings with a force that no amount of sympathetic framing can fully absorb and neutralize. The Freedom Flight has arrived at its destination, and the view from the landing is not what was advertised.